Hi,
Yeah.
Kevin. Great to have you here today.
Hey, Angela. Thanks so much for having me. Um, so I actually was planning on giving a talk about how we're prototyping different coordination tools at the Moonshot Collective, which is Gitcoin DAO's rapid prototyping workstream. But I can get into the individualist collectivist talk as well. I've actually never given that one except on Twitter. Which direction would you like me to go?
Both.
Both?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Maybe I will go through this presentation I was planning on giving first, which is about coordination party kit and the tool that we're building at Moonshot Collective in order to help coordinate ourselves. So for those of you who aren't familiar, the Moonshot Collective is a collection of builders and Web3 community members who prototype experiments in coordination. So basically, if you have developer skills and you want to help build the future, you can join this work stream with tens of others. We're going to take tools from prototyping into market validation, into growth, and then hopefully decentralizing them into their own projects. So this is kind of like the accelerator slash like labs version of Gitcoin. And I'd call like Kernel to be our first alumni. We've had a lot of experiments come out of the Gitcoin network over the years, and this just kind of systematizes the ability to take talent and turn it into useful mechanisms. The first thing we're building is called Coordination Party Kit. So if you want to hold the coordination party, you can bring a coordination party kit in. That's like the product vision. My macro view here is that the Internet of Jobs is going to be happening. And when I talk about the Internet of Jobs, what I'm talking about here is this idea that the Internet of Information reinvented everything to do with society that has to do with information, because you could now send a computer network could now send information across the computer network. And that changed entertainment, media, politics, social media, the way we relate to each other, because those things all rely on information. And I believe the Internet of Value is going to reinvent everything in society that relies on value transfer, because we can now send value and scarcity across a computer network. So right now, everyone's really focused on like DeFi and like art collecting. And I think that people aren't focusing enough on the Internet of Jobs. Just put a post into the chat here that people can read about my little theory on the Internet of Jobs here and what's going to emerge. But I think it just follows from first principles that the Internet of Jobs is going to be here. And my big belief is that the Internet of Jobs is what comes after DAOs, because we now have people who are working on NFTs and DeFi working in these DAOs. And the Internet of Jobs is kind of like what they're creating. And whatever mechanisms we create for DAOs, I could see being transposed to 97% of humanity. And this is like a really exciting time, but it's also the precipice of many risks as well, because the Internet of Jobs could bring Web3 mainstream. 99% of society does not think about their investments when they think about their financial lives. They think about their jobs, their ability to earn. So I believe truly that Web3 can go mainstream if we build an Internet of Jobs. And I think that we can build a better Internet of Jobs than like the gig economy that existed in Web 2. And that's like a pretty important point, because I'm out if we're just building the gig economy but on blockchain. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. You change something by building a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. And that's kind of what we're trying to do with Coordination Party Kit. And I hope that we're doing with the Internet of Jobs is creating more empowerment for everyday members of society, as opposed to the gig economy, which I think kind of like boxes people in, and it's like a race to the bottom, commodification of skill sets. So basically, for me, it's all about talent. We really want to be optimizing for the talented individuals in Gitcoin DAO and in Moonshot Collective, and giving them the tools that empowers them to do their jobs faster, to find their next opportunity faster. And the ideal end state of what we're building is that there's all these DAOs in the world that are sort of popping up. And what we want to do is have a product suite that helps DAOs recruit, recognize, reward, and retain talent. So basically, like, how do you contribute to Gitcoin DAO is a problem that we actively have right now. And if we can build Web3 native tools that allow us to do all these things, then that's our alpha. Gitcoin DAO is a machine that builds the machine. The products that you all know and are familiar with are like quadratic funding and hackathons. But there's like the DAO behind that is the machine that builds the machine. And if we can build tools that help us with our onboarding and retainment of the talented individuals who are working on these products now, that's the end game. The other thing that's going on right now is that the coordination party kit is going to be hopefully high ROI tools that are also low time to value. Low time to value basically means that like quadratic funding and Gitcoin grants is great, but like in order to start a quadratic funding round, you need at least 20K. Same with the Gitcoin hackathon. It costs like 5 or 10K to sponsor. What we wanted to do was to lower the time to value for people who are working with Gitcoin's tools. So instead of 10K, you can just do $10 rewards to people. So basically, the idea is to make it easier to coordinate in these DAOs with this DAO coordination kit. So I'm going to go into the individual tools and the experiments that we're running right here. The first one is called Tip Party. It's a way of rewarding people who show up to calls. And the mechanism is pretty freaking easy. You just collect a bunch of addresses with a secret word, and then you can drop tokens to those addresses. And the market side is anyone who goes to events and is DAO native. Presentations are a little bit lame, so why don't we do a demo? So if I go to tip.party and I connect my wallet, then I can create a room. I think y'all are called the Governauts. Is that right? Governauts. Let's load that room. I'm going to sign into it. And then, so basically, once I've signed into this room, then anyone who knows the name Governauts could come in and could do a drop to the Governauts and give them tokens in exchange for being rewarded and engaged in the DAO call. So if anyone wants to. Yeah, of course. I'm not going to dangle that in front of you without giving y'all a link, Angela. Give me a little credit. It looks like Sid Code's already there and already signed in, so he's the second person after me. And what was really cool was using this at MCon in Denver. We had 130 people that showed up to MCon during our demo for the tip party. And then we dropped, well, Austin Griffith dropped GTC to them. And then the founders of Meta Factory, Spork DAO, DAO House, and a couple others were like, yo, I want in on this tip party. And they dropped all their tokens to everyone at MetaCon also. So it was like a fun way of just rewarding people who show up. I'll have to talk to Austin about whether we have any tokens to drop on the Governauts, but thank you all for signing in and playing with my demo. So that's the first just kind of example of a tool in the toolkit that is the coordination party kit. Kind of the strategy here is to create a series of tools that are complementary to each other and put them in a toolkit. So for the same reason that you would buy a toolbox in order to get a screwdriver, but it also is useful that you would have a wrench and a set of pliers and a hammer. With the coordination party kit, the idea is that like maybe you get it for tip party, but there's a bunch of other tools that you didn't know existed that are in there as well. And that's what I'm going to go back to talking about, unless people specifically want to dive in on anything tip party. Take a sip.
They are tipping also at the moment. Any questions or comments?
All right, I'm going to go on.
At the moment, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, I just ask that please keep the link in this room. I don't want it to get out of this room, because then that pollutes the list for any drop that the Moonshot Collective would do to the Governauts, and I don't think any of us want that.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to go back to my presentation. So that's Tip Party. It's like just such a simple, small utility, and that's what I love about this is that we built Gitcoin back in 2017 as this like giant monolith of all things that are hosted at gitcoin.co. We've got like a bunch of products in the same code base, and we're doing things differently now. These tools and the coordination party kit are simple, they're modular, and they're anti-fragile, which means that you don't need Gitcoin for them. You could just tip this and like host your own version of it if you want to. And that's like how we're building software now in the future. The next tool that we're building is called Pay Party, which is basically a way to recognize and reward your best contributors to your DAO. So the mechanism that this uses is you kind of collect votes about who each contributor thinks is valuable, which creates an n by n matrix of votes where N is the number of contributors to your work stream or to your DAO. And then you can drop lists or drop tokens to that list weighted by the number of votes that are in that N by N matrix. So basically the opportunity here is to create an intersubjective view of who within the DAO creates the most value and then to drop tokens to that list. And that's called Pay Party. We're working on a thing called Grant Party, which is a way of rewarding the best projects in your DAO. This is basically a fork of the decentralized Gitcoin grants protocol that is being built right now. And so basically the idea is to have an easy quadratic funding tool that anyone can use in order to reward contributors to their DAO with quadratic funding. So basically, Gitcoin's betting big on the next version of Gitcoin grants being this quadratic funding protocol, which you can actually see at grants.gtcdao.net. Like it's already there. It's already in alpha. It's working, or at least I have a JSON RPC error right now. Let's see if I can get it to load. But yeah, so basically the future of Gitcoin grants is this protocol, not the centralized version that we've used for the last 12 rounds. So am fairly excited about working that into the coordination party toolkit. The next tool that we have is tokenstream.party. This is actually a quite interesting tool that grants stable income to DAO contributors. And the way that it works is that I can set up a stream to any contributor to Gitcoin DAO. And if they stop showing up, they don't get paid anymore. So we've had this problem where like someone shows up and you have like a really great first call with them and you're like, oh my God, the vibes are so strong with this one. Like, where did they come from? Then you put them on a token stream and then you don't hear from them for 3 weeks and you're like, fuck, what was that about? And so the way token stream works is that you can set up a stream to anyone. And if they stop showing up, then they don't get the tokens anymore. So basically, it's a stream that you have to withdraw from in order for it to keep going. So here's one of the contributors, ghostcoffee.eth, who in the Moonshot Collective put in his work log. So when you withdraw from the stream, you have to have a reason why you withdraw. And then and so I can go in and I can say, okay, they worked on the coordination party setup last week, and that's why they withdrew $1,000. And then the previous week before that, they worked on the GTC staking starter kit. Okay, cool. They're still working on it. Let's roll. This is easy. So basically, it's a way of rewarding people with stable income, where the onus to withdraw and to do it is on them. We've actually found that people will not come in and withdraw if they've stopped work on things, which is quite a nice like balancing mechanism between the paying party and the receiving party. So those are some examples of tools that we're building in the coordination party kit. I just want to end by saying that like I would not build a group of tools that we're not dog fooding ourselves. And so part of the idea here is within the Moonshot Collective that a percentage of everyone's compensation comes through token party, pay party, tip party, and then also the Gitcoin grants party. And the whole idea here is to build an engaged layer of individual contributors to the Moonshot Collective. And hopefully it creates a stronger incentive to join the DAO and to work your way up in as an individual contributor in Gitcoin DAO and in the Moonshot Collective. But we're kind of in our first iteration of this. We're going to be launching these tools at ETH Denver 2022. Shelling Point 2022 is the one-day conference, the celebration of coordination that Gitcoin DAO is running. And we're just going to keep iterating. And there's probably tools that'll get backed out of the toolbox. There's tools that will get added to the toolbox. But we feel pretty strongly that giving people the ability to coordinate their compensation and resource allocation in the DAOs is going to be a big market one day. And it's something that we need ourselves. So we're trying to invent it. And I think that like success of each tool will be measured on like the tool level, but also on the toolbox level as well. So I expect that finally in February, and we'll have demos of each of these tools that we can play with at ETH Denver. So Angela, maybe I'll stop there and then we can discuss. If we have more time, we can get into the individualist collectivist talk.
We still have 15 minutes left.
Cool. I don't want to overwhelm everyone by doing 2 presentations.
Oh, why not?
Let's see some questions in the chat.
Today. Yeah.
When Moonshot individuals and or collectives? I don't know what that question means. I'm sorry. It seems like you're memeing, but I'm like just getting into my coffee, so I don't get it. Dr. Lawrence Lau says tips and micropayments, impact of high gas prices, question mark. Yeah, so each of these tools we're deploying on the Ethereum mainnet, which has high gas prices, but also we're deploying to Matic, and I think XDAI is the other network. So basically the idea is that Ethereum scaling strategy is heavily reliant on layer twos, and we are supporting that with layer two providers. And what's nice about that is gas is as cheap as air. So when you want to do micropayments, it's pretty important that, like, Gitcoin grants, the median contribution is $1, and it would not work if we were on the Ethereum mainnet where each contribution costs $20 in gas. So being on Matic is really great because each contribution takes like a cent of gas. It's a really great question, Dr. Lawrence.
There's another one from Sid Code.
What's up, Sid?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm involved in both these endeavors, like Governauts, as well as the things we do at Gitcoin DAO. And we have been analyzing transactions based on the praise system that is used in the common stack, like people praising each other. And those praises are converted to impact and eventually tokens. So can we do something similar with these tools that we have in Gitcoin DAO, like analyze how the tip.party transactions have went and see how that has influenced communities and rooms? Can we do that sort of an analysis there?
Yeah, so yeah, I think that's really important. I felt so like a little bit like I was showing up to like a gunfight with a knife earlier because I was reading the agenda on the Notion, and there was all these like really first principles thinking about community evolution and intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, and like ownership rewards and power distribution and equal opportunities. And like, I want to be clear that like I haven't done any analysis on any of that stuff. Like we're just like have a hypothesis about what will work in the Moonshot Collective. And like the bar for like, do we want to give this to anyone else is, do we like using it ourselves? So it's much more of a like empirical way of feeling out whether these tools are good or bad. And then there's like an iteration loop out. There's a loop of like, we build this, and then there's like a loop of we build this for ourselves. And then there's a loop of, do we want to build this for others? And right now it's very finger in the air. Does this work? We are bringing on Sid, you'll be the first person in the collective to know this, so don't leak the alpha, but we're bringing on 2 really amazing product managers who are going to help take this from like Owocki's 100,000 foot view to like actually like rigorous machine that's doing the innovation. And that's one of the things that once they get up to speed, I'm hoping that we can bake in a little bit more, is the analysis of the transactions, but also being like a little bit more principled in our design. Great question.
Here's another one.
Oh, go ahead.
From Gideon. I'm taking this from the YouTube stream. This is, wait. There are many, many tools for compensation emerging from many players. Do you foresee the Internet of Jobs working all right with that diversity of tools, or will we need some standards?
I think, well, we're all in this space because we believe in decentralization, right? So it strikes me that like client diversity, we care a lot about. What I don't want to get is to like a place where we all rely on Trinet for our employment. And they've got a monopoly on it. So I think the opposite of that is a diversity of tools and perspectives. I think we're going to see this Cambrian explosion of tools. And then as the market sort of consolidates and goes through a bear period, then we'll see people like a shelling point on the tools that are the best. But yeah, I mean, I don't see a need for standards right now. I do think there's a real need to explore the design space before standards happen. And then I don't know, but like, I'm just one person. That's just where I see it from here. It's still very early. I could be wrong.
Yeah. By the way, we'll have a talk from Gnosis Zodiac. I mean, to open standards, just for everyone this afternoon. And there's a second question. Any plans for a task tracking tool?
Oh man, you should look at the Moonshot Collective project board, because I've got maybe 150 ideas on there. And we only have the bandwidth to work on maybe like 2 or 3 per season, which is every quarter. There is a task tracking tool idea on there. I could not say with any confidence that it will be pulled into a design sprint anytime soon. I do think there's an opportunity to basically have like crowdsourced or like crowd-funded, crowd-voted product roadmaps, where basically you expose like a Trello board to voting of what tools should be next. And then the tools that get the most votes are rise to the top, and maybe there's some sort of like token mechanic or quadratic voting on that. So but yeah, there is a, so yeah, TLDR, there is something on the backlog, but I don't know when it'll get built. We're still getting organized about that.
All right, then many people in the chat asked for your Twitter talk. We still have 13 minutes left. So let's go for it. Do you need the Twitter link?
No, I think it's my pinned
Okay.
tweet.
Okay, all right.
I also have it in slide form, so I could actually just go through it. This is actually kind of fun because I haven't actually given this talk to anyone, so I'm glad that you all are into it. And you said I have 12 minutes until 7 a.m. my time. Is that right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. So I made this talk because I see an opportunity to bridge the divide between individualists and collectivists. And this talk, I'm going to aim to get through it in like 5 or 10 minutes, and then we can have a discussion about the ideas within. But the talk TLDR is basically individualists and collectivists do not agree on much, especially not how to organize society. These differences are amplified by the nation state, which basically means coercive collectivism. And Web3 can bridge this divide with non-coercive collectivism. So basically, individualism stresses the rights of individual goals and the rights of the individual person, whereas collectivism focuses on the group goals. What is the best for the collective group and interpersonal relationships? And for those of you skilled at reading between the lines, these groups do not often agree with each other. They don't actually even agree about the definitions of each other. When I talked to prominent libertarians, they said individualists care about individual sovereignty and avoiding coercion. And collectivists, when they defined collectivism, was focused on group goals, but they didn't even agree on their definitions of each other. And I thought that was an interesting call out, is that for individualists, the axis is sovereignty or not. And for collectivists, the axis is group good or individual good. And that was like a super interesting call out for me, because when you start to hear individualist collective critiques of collectivism, that like all taxation is theft or taxation creates corruption, then basically you start to understand like, oh, it's all about sovereignty for individualists. And then when I talked to collectivists, it was like very consequentialist, like, if we don't fund public goods, we'll have no fund public goods. Like, if they're the only way to fund public goods right now is this coercive taxation thing. So I really think that like what's at stake here in these disagreements is the ability to fund public goods. And I give a lot of fucks about public goods. Like, I get a lot of value from open source software and fresh air and parks and journalism and public knowledge. And I want to make sure that in the information age, they are still funded. So I wrote this talk in order to try to bridge this divide. And I want to get past this zero-sum game of, are individualist concerns like government coercion more urgent than collectivist concerns like climate change? And the opportunity that I see in between these two things is to create a healthy balance between autonomy and interdependence, and room for the individual in the context of a larger non-coercive collective. So basically, the opportunity here is that private goods have been in the past funded by business models that have existed before. But I do think that public goods can be funded by Web3 in a non-coercive model. And that's extremely exciting to me, because we're starting to see all these DAOs, which are basically unbundled governance of the public goods. So like the old world is nation states that are bundling up governance of all public goods into one nation state that takes 35% of your salary. And now we're seeing unbundled governance of public goods. Radical is a public good for developers and their token is RAD. Gitcoin grants is a public good and its token is GTC. ENS. Like, basically, you take the public good and you give governance rights to it, to the holders of a scarce token. And so when you ask the question, when is there going to be non-coercive public goods funding? Holy shit, we're doing it in the Web3 space, because Web3 creates non-coercive markets for public goods. And that is the hugest opportunity, is that all of these DAOs have their own individual public goods that they maintain. And it gets really fucking cool when you stack them on top of each other. So we're all in this like public good of the internet. And then we've got this like circle within it of the Ethereum space. And then we've got all these DAOs inside of that. And we can fund public goods at scale by stacking these impact DAOs on top of each other. So if you've got like a Gitcoin grant inside of the sushi ecosystem that draws from like a sushi matching pool, but it also draws from the Ethereum matching pool, and it also draws from the main matching pool, basically you're creating this like jet engine of public goods funding, because each individual matching pool is like a fan, but all together they're like a jet engine. And that's the huge opportunity that I see with stacking impact DAOs on top of each other to fund public goods. And then like the real end game for me is climbing up the public goods stack from crypto public goods to software to like nation state public goods, and then like worldwide public goods. So basically like building a parallel opt-in system for digital native public goods, which could then support a transition to non-digital public goods. Software is eating the world right now. And if we can solve digital public goods, maybe we can solve all public goods. And then, so basically if we can do that, we can transcend the old divisions once we stop needing coercive nation state public goods funding. And I think that that's the huge opportunity, is scaling public goods globally. So we could take these models mainstream, and what that would do is it would take us from the industrial age, when we started with coercive taxation to fund all public goods, to the information age, when we have individual unbundled markets to fund individual public goods. And the big idea of this talk is, what if we could transcend our individualist collectivist divide and build new mainstream public goods tools all together? So, oh my God, that was like a total speed run of my presentation. And I probably didn't stop and pay homage to a lot of big ideas there, but it's because I only had 12 minutes left. I will give did I give you guys a link to this talk already? Okay, I already put it in the chat. Please, this talk is Creative Commons, like fork it, use it whenever you want. It's for everyone to spread these ideas. It's Creative Commons license. So please feel free to take it and do what you will with it.
Any comments here or questions?
I don't know if it was like people are still digesting, or if it was just kind of too cerebral to do in 7 minutes, but either way, thank you for listening. Thank you. This was epic. Someone, not to mix the topics too much, but someone just showed tokenlog.xyz is a token quadratic ranking tool, which I think is quite interesting. Did someone in the Governauts build that? It looks like it's got Common Stack and a couple of Ethereum tools on it. So I'm curious who built that.
Jess, who built it?
Will built that. I'll put his handle here in the chat.
Okay. Cool. Nice work, Will.
One question from Roberto. Kevin, where do you think the early adoption crossover will happen with crypto, software, nations, world? Early adoption crossover.
Yeah, so Gitcoin Grants did a prototype of, in the coronavirus pandemic, there was a bunch of businesses in downtown Boulder that were going to have to shut down because they couldn't make rent anymore. And so we did a quadratic funding round for Main Street in Boulder, Colorado. And I just like hustled to raise 25K from non-crypto people. And we did a 25K quadratic funding round, and it went great. Like, it works outside of crypto. And so, yeah, that was called Downtown Stimulus. And I'm really proud of that, because like we proved that quadratic funding works outside of these like cerebral, insane, like crypto verse. But then like we went back to focusing on Gitcoin, and we're like, oh, well, we can't really like justify putting more resources here. We're focused on open source software. And so I'm hoping someone will pick that up and will be taking quadratic funding mainstream. Like, one of our strategies right now at Gitcoin is to make Gitcoin grants extremely forkable, so that anyone can go and do it to their own public goods, like, you know, climate change public goods, journalism public goods. If someone in a sanctioned nation was going to take Gitcoin grants and fork it and put it into their communities, we could, you know, we don't have the liability or the need to stop them. So yeah, Gitcoin grants, the forkable protocol, is like hopefully a way that we can enable this to happen. But Downtown Stimulus was an early prototype that showed that quadratic funding worked in the mainstream. Oh, and we also ran FundOSS, which was a quadratic funding tool for Web2 open source. And basically the big idea there was, why don't we, like, the next logical step from crypto open source is Web2 open source. And we partnered with Open Collective, who is just such an inspiration for me. Like, Pio was a big reason why I started Gitcoin. And so partnering with them was amazing. But we raised $95K for Web2 open source software using FundOSS. So like the model works, and it's been proven. It's just a matter of like finding the cycles and the time to expand out. And I think that like the ultimate way we enable people to do that is with affordable Gitcoin grants that they can take out into their own communities. That's my hope. Oh, the other way is like, and I actually, like, with you guys, I should actually really emphasize this point. It's not just quadratic funding. It's going to be retroactive public goods funding. It's going to be bonding curves, which I know Griff is all about. It's going to be probably staking, like what Dev Protocol is doing. And what's cool is that these impact DAOs can stack on top of each other, even if the mechanism that they're using isn't the same. So like Gitcoin could be one overlay, then like Common Stack could be another overlay, and then Radical could be another overlay. So the way these impact DAOs can stack, like you can have different mechanisms that you kind of build into different impact DAOs. And I think that that's really important because we care about diversity of mechanism in this space. Like client diversity is a meme at the base layer, and we should have public goods funding mechanism diversity as if we're going to build a whole stack of like worldwide public goods. So we're one iron in the fire, but I'm also putting the question back on this group and on the Common Stack people and the token engineering commons, which is like, how do we take these mechanisms mainstream? It is like 7 a.m. and I'm more amped up than I've ever been before 7 a.m. So thank you for having me, Angela. This is really cool.
Awesome. Kevin, thank you so much. And taking these mechanisms mainstream is certainly a big topic in our community.